It's going to be fun. This was a great series. I mean, Seattle came out really great against us, so they're a great team, so most respect to them. But, you know, this is the energy that we got to carry over. The next series is going to be probably a big one, a huge one. Obviously, everyone knows that. But we got to focus on our defense. Our defense is going to get us where we need to be, and if we don't, then it's going to be an ugly story. So we got to keep the foot on the gas and keep going. But, yeah, this is just two.
So apparently that was a jump ball. At least that's what the official score sheet claims. You know the play, where Lexi Hull boxed out perfectly, staking her ground like every basketball manual teaches, only for A'ja Wilson to come barreling right over her back, hacking at the ball. According to the refs, that was somehow a 50-50 ball. But you saw it. The broadcast crew was floored. The coaches were losing their minds. And for thousands of fans watching at home, it was the moment a sneaking suspicion finally crystallized into hard truth. This wasn't just a random bad call. This was the spark that set off an entire powder keg. It was the undeniable snapshot of a problem players and coaches have been quietly raging about for months. Thanks to this one viral clip, the door is now blown wide open, and calls for an official investigation are gaining ground. The players are officially over it, and the league is starting to take notice, especially given the collective bargaining agreement. You can see it on the court in their exasperated reactions, hear it in the edge of their voices, and watch it in the coaches who are practically bursting out of their dress shoes. This isn't just frustration over a single missed whistle. This is an unspoken revolt against a league that has let sloppy, biased officiating run unchecked for far too long. Today, we're piecing together exactly how this play became ground zero for a rebellion, using the league's own evidence to show how deep the rot goes, and why the WNBA is staring down a credibility disaster it can't afford to shrug off. Even the commentators, professionals who usually dance around criticism, were tripping over their words trying to process it in real time. Because at its core, this play was ridiculously simple. Every kid who's ever strapped on sneakers knows this. You get between your opponent and the basket, you box out, that is your space, period. Lexi Hull executed it flawlessly. She sealed Wilson off, locked down her position, and was in perfect rebounding stance. Meanwhile, Wilson skipped all that fundamental work. She lunged right over Hull's shoulders, made clear contact, and disrupted everything. That is the literal textbook example of an over-the-back foul. 99 out of 100 times that's Indiana fever ball. Easy, except apparently not. Instead, the refs blew the whistle and signaled for a jump ball. A call so backward, so counter to every rule of basketball, it felt like time itself glitched. This wasn't a borderline judgment call. It wasn't some gray area scrap. It was a blatant foul that magically turned into a reward for the person committing it, giving the ball right back to Las Vegas off the possession arrow. And that was all it took. This short, crystal clear, impossible to defend clip instantly became the banner for every complaint fans have hurled at the officiating this year. It was no longer just gut feelings or scattered conspiracies. This was undeniable. And worse, it was only the most obvious example of something fans have been tracking for a while. Because if you zoom out from that single play, it becomes part of a much bigger and uglier pattern. Fans even have a name for it. They call it Whistle Wilson. It's not just some joke on Twitter. It's practically its own grassroots data project at this point. The most devoted WNBA followers have been watching every A'ja Wilson minute, like hawks, tallying up every soft foul, every forgiving no call. And this game laid it all bare. The numbers are staggering. Wilson alone went to the free throw line 13 times. The entire Indiana Fever, 12 players, 4 full quarters, combined for only 17. That means one player almost matched an entire team's free throw total by herself. Let that marinate for a second. But here's the twist that truly makes this a league-wide meltdown. It wasn't just Indiana sounding the alarm. This is where it escalates from a typical controversy into a full-scale crisis. Because the outrage wasn't just coming from the Fever's sideline, or from their loyal, increasingly furious fans. It was also coming from Las Vegas. That's right, the Aces, the very team benefiting from these lopsided calls, were just as fed up. Their head coach, Becky Hammon, was visibly annoyed, arms folded, glaring at the refs after bizarre whistles. Even when her team was on the winning side of this nonsense, she looked like she wanted no part of it. When Becky Hammon sat down for her post-game press conference, she didn't blame her players for getting muscled around. She didn't chalk it up to a lack of hustle or missed assignments. And while Hammon was fuming over the constant clutching and hacking that somehow never warranted whistles, on the other sideline, Indiana's head coach Stephanie White was staging her own very public protest. With just over 5 minutes to go and her Fever team up by more than 20, she finally snapped. She charged the ref, let them have it, and promptly earned herself a technical foul. This wasn't a meltdown out of frustration in a tight contest. This was a calculated explosion. A respected coach, on the cusp of one of her biggest wins, standing up in front of the entire basketball world to announce, "This is not okay." It was her way of letting the officials, and by extension the league office, know that this wasn't a legitimate basketball game anymore. And the reaction from her superstar point guard, Caitlin Clark, made everything crystal clear. Clark leapt off the bench, beaming, hand raised to give White a high five. That moment right there was a perfect snapshot of where this team's collective head is at. From the coaching staff down to the franchise player, they're all sick and tired of it. They're unified in their disgust at how these games are being officiated.
I felt like our defensive energy, physicality, disruptiveness was better. We made it more difficult for them, moving the ball around the perimeter. We executed better in our ball screen defense.
This wasn't some Tuesday night undercard. This was the two-time defending champs with the reigning MVP facing off against the WNBA's hottest draw, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Every camera was rolling, every big-name analyst was watching, and every fan had eyes locked on the court. And under that glaring spotlight, the officiating didn't just bend, it snapped. That egregious over-the-back jump ball from A'ja Wilson on Lexi Hull was so painfully obvious, so indisputable, that it became the perfect smoking gun. The visual evidence that finally pulled the lid off all those private complaints echoing around locker rooms and bus rides. It was the flashpoint that transformed months of whispered discontent into the dominant public conversation. The outrage that had been building under the surface suddenly had a viral moment, and it was a moment the league couldn't just quietly scrub off the internet. So how exactly are the players calling out the league? Because here's the thing, it's not always through spicy post-game interviews or cryptic tweets. Often, the clearest protest is in their body language, their micro-reactions on the floor. Start with Lexi Hull. On that infamous play, she executed everything perfectly. Tough, smart, fundamental basketball, exactly what coaches beg for. And her reward? To have the refs punish her for doing it right while rewarding Wilson's blatant foul. Her immediate stunned face, her hands thrown up, said everything. What else can I possibly do? That right there is a silent but deafening indictment. Then look at Caitlin Clark. She wasn't even on the floor when that fiasco happened, but she was living every second of it from the bench. Coaching up teammates, pacing like a caged lion, erupting after buckets. And when White got whistled for that tech, Caitlin practically sprinted over to celebrate it with her teammates. That was no random high five. That was Clark giving her coach a massive public endorsement for standing up to the officiating. That is one of the biggest stars in global sports looking at the refs and saying, "Yes, this protest is overdue. We're all fed up." Many of you watching have been breaking this down for weeks on Twitter, TikTok, Reddit. You've spotted the exact same exasperated looks to the refs after another missed whistle, the increasingly harder fouls needed just to get a call, the visible droop in shoulders after fiascos like the Wilson jump ball. That is all part of the same silent scream. If you agree that the players' reactions spelled out exactly how broken this system is, smash that like button. Because that collective nonverbal outrage has now created a deafening roar that the league office can't pretend not to hear. Which brings us to the bottom line. The WNBA has landed itself in a credibility nightmare, and it's entirely self-inflicted. For months, they've apparently chosen to ignore growing warnings from inside their own locker rooms. Let it fester, hope it dies down. Now, it's blown up in their faces. This problem doesn't just have rumors swirling around it anymore. It has a face, it has a nickname, Whistle Wilson, and it has gone viral in ways they can't control. The real story of this game wasn't just a signature win for Indiana. It was the shattering public unveiling of a league-wide crisis. Because now, the collective fury of players, coaches, and fans has drawn a line in the sand. The WNBA can't stay silent. That silence would be read as a guilty verdict, an admission that they know the system's rigged and aren't willing to fix it. The more eyes on this fiasco, the more the league has to face up and finally protect players like Caitlin Clark, Lexi Hull, and the Indiana Fever from seeing their hard work torpedoed by suspect whistles. Let them know every single one of us is watching. What do you think of the corrupt referees and Whistle Wilson? Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.